Coming up on Mountain News this morning, the demand for COVID-19 tests sees a spike after the holiday weekend. And health officials urge people here in the Commonwealth to seek treatment if infected with the virus.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning, I'm Chas Gayhart. It is 6 o'clock on Wednesday, December 29th. Let's go back over and check in with Brandon on a rainy morning.
Yeah, it's one of those days you just kind of wanted to sleep in.
Yes.
But both of us woke up before our alarms went off this morning. You mentioned that you woke up a little early, and I did too, so I just couldn't sleep. I don't know what it was. It didn't have the rain on the roof,
I guess
though, at that point.
Yeah, we knew we were going to have to be here. We couldn't wait.
Exactly. There you go. All right, let's get into the forecast this morning, tracking a few of those showers for the last 6 hours, and it's been pretty heavy at times in the overnight hours. There's actually a flood advisory in effect for parts of Bell County until 6:30. Which is about 30 minutes from now if that's not been allowed to expire yet. But we're going to continue to watch that. Buffalo Mountain, pretty quiet this morning. 54 up there, 54 here in Hazard. Prestonsburg, Logan, London, and Williamsburg as well this morning. And you see our warmest spot in the region, Jacksboro, at 64. 64 is the forecast high today. 45 is the average. 72 the record, set back on this day in 1984. Chas?
Thanks, Brandon. Well, a Boyd County congregation is salvaging what they can after a bad fire Sunday night. Fire officials say it started after a driver crashed into God's Direction Church. Police believe the driver was under the influence at the time. Fire crews say a portion of the church is a total loss, but the pastor says they were able to salvage a few pictures and a plaque of the 10 Commandments.
It actually just feels like you're kind of like in a little dream, you know, it's kind of like you just can't believe it. My first thing was just speechless. My wife, she started crying about it, and just, you know, it's just a lot of questions, you know, you kind of wonder about things, but I believe there's a bigger thing to it, you know, than this.
The Boyd County Sheriff's Office says the driver has been arrested. The pastor says they will rebuild what was damaged. Areas devastated by tornadoes earlier this month are still struggling to recover. Relief supplies are coming in from all over the country, and that's not all. People are also traveling to the area to lend a helping hand. Katie Cook has the story.
Canning goods, so these are literally just glass jars.
2 big trucks and a trailer rolled up from Antigua, Wisconsin to Bowling Green, Kentucky Monday afternoon.
And we weren't even expecting half of this.
But even small towns 10 hours away came together to help tornado relief efforts. Churches donating items, a trucker from Wisconsin offering his semi time and fuel for free too. This mother and son duo leading the charge.
It's nothing for me, honestly. I love doing stuff like this, and honestly, when I woke up that Saturday morning and saw the damage, I knew I had to help.
It's not the first time they've traveled across country to help with disaster relief.
We did it a few months ago with Hurricane Ida, and with this, of course, was a whole different story.
The donations going to the Good Deeds Club.
We just do good deeds expecting nothing in return.
14-year-old Emery Osborne started the Good Deeds Club when she was just in kindergarten. It's now a registered nonprofit.
My 2 older sisters had a club called the Crafting Club, and there was no club for the younger kids, and so we felt left out, so I started the Good Deeds Club.
It started with a small gesture of kindness, like picking up trash, but has since grown into much more.
On average, Good Deeds delivers to about 50 people twice a week during the winter months because most of our hungry friends don't have access to food because of the weather.
Also furnishing homes for veterans through the VA program. And when the tornadoes struck Bowling Green, they knew they had to step in and help.
We've been walking up and down streets just handing out food, hygiene bags, and most people, beds are really in need right now, so we've been delivering beds to people that lost everything.
Excited to get these donations from Wisconsin to continue always giving back.
We did good deeds before the tornado, and we'll do the good deeds after the tornado too.
It'll be a long journey home for Kyle and Terry Robertson.
Right now, we're just doing it just for the sake of doing it. We're both laid off. He goes back to work after Christmas, and I'm laid off a little longer, and so we have time.
But they say it's all worth it to help those in need, whether 1 mile away or 700.
The deadline is less than a month away for businesses in eastern Kentucky to apply for disaster loans following the historic flooding back in March. A number of counties are eligible for the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loans. January 24th is the last day to apply. Governor Andy Beshear reported yesterday that the Commonwealth reached the highest number of COVID cases and positivity rates since September. The state reported 4,297 new cases, bringing our case total to 850,632. We had 23 new deaths as well, putting the Commonwealth's death toll at 12,097. The positivity rate is now at more than 12%. It currently sits at 12.61%. You can always find the latest COVID-19 information on our website at WYMT.com. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention updated guidelines for people who need to either isolate or quarantine due to COVID-19. At the same time, demand for the testing is surging in eastern Kentucky. WYMT's Zach Hawk has more on what to do if you test positive or have been in contact with someone who has.
Dr. John Jones is the medical director with Primary Care Centers of Eastern Kentucky. They have been getting ready for testing demand for a while.
Yeah, I think we have all the supplies on hand. We've kind of gotten used to this after the holiday spike, so we try to make sure that we have ample supply.
But just as testing demand increases, the CDC is changing how you need to react to positive tests and close exposures.
They've tried to really shorten the quarantine and isolation period as much as safely possible by looking at the vast majority of cases and what we're learning from that.
If you test positive, isolation now means avoiding everyone for 5 days, and then, if asymptomatic, masking up in public for 5 more days regardless of vaccination status.
And it's always a good practice to wear a mask anytime you're in public and mass gatherings right now, regardless.
If you have had a close contact and are fully vaccinated, the CDC no longer recommends a quarantine. Just wear a mask. But partially or fully unvaccinated individuals need to follow the isolation guidelines.
So we have some individuals that didn't get their second dose till 2-3 months ago, and now they're still considered fully vaccinated until they reach that 6-month interim. And at that point in time, if they don't get boosted, then they need to follow the guidance for those who are considered unvaccinated at that point.
While it may be a bit complicated, the goal of testing, isolating, and quarantining remains the same.
If you have symptoms, you really need to come in and be tested just to try to prevent the spread. Even if your symptoms are mild, even if you're vaccinated, it's good to know if you are positive and you have COVID-19.
Local health officials believe the post-holiday demand for testing will peak early in the new year. In Hazard, Zach Hawk, WYMT, Mountain News.
Comprehensive information describing the changing guidelines and what the various terms mean is available online through the CDC website. If previous holidays are any indication, there's likely an increase in COVID-19 cases right around the corner. Public health officials want people to remember that the monoclonal antibody infusion is a very promising treatment. However, it's most effective if pursued early into infection, and some people may not even be discussing that option with doctors.
If you do contract COVID, contact your healthcare provider. Some people are just getting tested and then they're having severe symptoms and they know they've got COVID, but they're not talking to the primary doctor because they're getting tested at another site.
Some people may be looking for the antiviral pills, but Lockhart says that they are still in testing and a ways off from being available to the general public. During these pandemic times, you might be concerned about what you might have, COVID-19 or the flu. There are entire pages from the CDC website dedicated to similarities between COVID-19 and the flu. They can both start with the usual: fever, chills, and muscle pain, plus a runny nose, cough, and sore throat. Bottom line, doctors are saying there's really no way to tell them apart. They do recommend that if you think you were exposed, it's time to get tested.
If a person thinks they've been exposed, then they need to be tested. If a person starts having symptoms, and again, you can't really tell, it's very difficult to tell the difference. At that point, I recommend getting tested.
CDC officials say the flu comes on much more quickly. Symptoms appear just 1 to 4 days after infection. With COVID, it could be 5 days or 2 days or 14 days and any time in between. The governor's office says during this year, the Kentucky Small Business Tax Credit Program has allowed the creation of 339 new jobs and more than $3.6 million in investments in 107 businesses across the state. The average pay for the new jobs is close to $26 an hour. The small business program provides incentives to companies with 50 or fewer employees to hire workers and invest in new equipment and technology. Some tax preparers call 2021 the year of the child. It all stems from those child tax credits some of you received monthly starting back in July. Those payments are not counted as income in 2021, but you must reconcile those payments when you file your 2021 tax return. But before you file your taxes in 2021, Dana Overall, a 30-year certified public accountant, has some advice.
If you had children in daycare, most likely you are going to see a favorable result when you file your taxes for 2021.
Overall also says if you have a child born as late as December 31st of this year, you still get that entire $3,600 child tax credit.
Tracking a few heavier bands of rain near the Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia borders this morning. Let's take a look at live pinpoint Doppler radar, and you'll see some of those. And we're going to continue to watch some of those coming into parts of Bell County. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you can get a closer look at where they're at. Actually going through parts of Knox and Whitley counties as well. Same areas already been worked over by some heavy rain a little earlier, so just kind of keep that in mind if you're traveling along 75 or 25E this morning. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s from 48 in Ashland now to 64 in Jacksboro. That's the range this morning. 64 is the forecast high today. Temperatures will drop all the way to about 9, 10, 11 o'clock this morning before they start to rebound. Storms this morning give way to scattered chances for rain throughout the day. And as we look at our headlines for the next few days, tracking two fronts, the potential for heavy rain and storms is around not only today but this weekend, and it could be a wintry finish to the weekend, the first one of 2022. Chas?
Thanks, Brandon, and thank you for joining Mountain News this morning. More news is on the way. Coming up next, the United States reaches yet another grim milestone in the fight against COVID-19.